Only one competitor truly stepped up to the plate today. It is a tough break for Alex Eala. She had a fantastic run cracking the global top 30 to reach a major career milestone, yet Noskova is the one advancing. What an absolute masterclass in offensive firepower. She dominated 6-2-6-0 to book her ticket to the quarterfinals. Honestly, she executed her game plan absolutely perfectly from start to finish. Sure, she hit a tiny snag while serving at 40-15, and Eala threatened a rally, but honestly, hold your breath for a second. Stop whatever you are doing right now. This is not a request. I need you completely glued to this screen, hanging on every single word I say for the next couple of minutes. Clear your entire schedule immediately. Switch your cellular device strictly offline. Kick every other gadget off your home network, bolt your deadbolts. Shut your thick curtains tight and crank that audio output to the absolute maximum until the deep frequencies are literally rattling the actual foundation beneath your feet. Why? Because the major athletic networks in the States, the scared wealthy suits sitting in corner offices, and the deeply rattled seasoned pros cowering in the Women's Tennis Association changing areas are all throwing a huge, frantic, incredibly organized party right now. They are uncorking high-end bubbly as we speak. You can hear their massive, embarrassing exhales of comfort. They are jabbing shaky hands toward the monitor, staring dead at the concluding score from this round of 16 clash over on Court 1. And they want to completely gaslight you into thinking this uprising is dead in the water for good. They see this 6-2-6-0 blowout belonging to 14th seed Linda Noskova. And they are working overtime to push a completely fake, sanitized storyline claiming the supposedly invincible Alex Eala phenomenon has finally crashed and burned. Those perfectly polished broadcasters are looking into network cameras, feeding the whole world a script about how the young Filipina sensation finally hit a wall, how the big stage humbled her, and how the classic money-backed power structure of women's pro tennis is totally insulated and back to the status quo. That is a blatant falsehood right to your eyes. They are feeding you absolute, undeniable garbage without an ounce of guilt. So today, right here on this platform, we are tearing the lid off the raw, unfiltered, horrifying reality hiding beneath these exact match stats. We are snatching the disguise right off the sports elitists. Because the outcome displayed in front of you is definitely not a loss. It is far from an embarrassment. It is certainly not a step backward. Instead, what you are witnessing is the absolute highest, most indisputable, battle-hardened token of ultimate respect. You are staring at the hard numerical proof of a massive multi-billion-dollar worldwide athletic empire joining forces in absolute, blinding, breathless dread just to halt a 20-year-old woman who came incredibly close to torching their whole empire to ashes. These final numbers do not tell a tale of Alex Eala falling short. They are the ultimate ironclad evidence showing just how deeply the establishment fears her unbelievable, earth-shattering talent. If you really want to grasp the heavy, mind-bending mental battles that went down on Court 1 this afternoon, we need to roll the footage backward. We must examine the precise backstory that mainstream reporters are frantically attempting to wipe out of your brain. Barely 48 hours prior, Alex Eala pulled off the absolute most cardinal offense against the stateside tennis elite. She walked onto that playing surface and methodically, mentally, and entirely broke down their billion-dollar poster girl Coco Gauff. She crushed the current United States Open title holder so completely that Gauff actually pretended to have nerve damage, whined about phantom shooting pains in her limb, and scurried off the grounds crying just to escape the sheer embarrassment of getting smoked. Eala did not simply defeat the fourth-ranked player globally. She completely stole her mystique. She laid bare the overwhelming weakness of the whole upper echelon. And the sheer aftermath of that particular showdown blasted ripples of raw, unfiltered dread across the private messaging channels of the women's professional circuit. The seasoned players completely freaked out. The highest-ranked competitors suddenly figured out their meticulously built vibe of being unbeatable had vanished forever. The big money brands figured out their cash dumps were massively at risk. So how did the power players react? They combined all their assets. They built a wall, they grabbed every solitary metric, every frame-by-frame stroke breakdown, every advanced tactical dossier they ever compiled on Alex Eala, and they spoon-fed all of it straight to Linda Noskova. They stared down the 14th seed representing the Czech Republic and practically said, "You are the final barricade we have left. If you cannot shut down this Filipina challenger immediately, right this evening, she will literally run off with all our hardware. Every single one of our giant endorsement deals, our best evening broadcast windows, and every last drop of our pride." They transformed Linda Noskova into a cornered, frenzied survival mode hired gun. And whenever you push a top-tier major tournament competitor against the wall, battling not merely for personal glory, but to save the entire sporting hierarchy from collapsing, they can pull off feats that straight-up defy basic science. Pay extremely close attention to the metrics displayed right here. Check out the downright scary, numerically ridiculous figures Linda Noskova magically had to conjure up merely to endure the overwhelming pressure Eala was bringing. We will kick things off with the wildest, most mind-blowing stat on the whole sheet. That second serve win rate. Linda Noskova secured an absurd cheat code level 81% of her secondary deliveries. 81%. You seriously need to wrap your head around how utterly insane and impossible it is to maintain a stat like that. On the pro circuit, a secondary delivery is a built-in weakness. That is the precise window where the receiver is expected to go on the offensive. That second serve is usually when players are most vulnerable. Even the absolute best servers this game has ever seen struggle there. The hardest-hitting icons of the sport typically scrape together maybe 50 to 55% of those points against top-tier returners. Yet Noskova somehow pulled off 81%. You might be wondering how that even happens in reality. Let me break it down for you. She managed it purely out of fight-or-flight instinct, pumped full of the frantic adrenaline of a deer staring down a top-of-the-food-chain hunter. That was not your standard calculated strategy. She was basically just grip and ripping it blindly. She clipped the tightest margins on the court, going for completely unhinged wildcard shots every time she tossed that ball up for a second serve. The reason? She realized right down to her bones that if she got dragged into long baseline exchanges with Alex Eala, she would get choked out, worn down, and demolished just like Coco Gauff did. Noskova simply had the best day she will ever have on a tennis court. She posted stats that she is guaranteed to never touch again for as long as she plays professionally entirely because the overwhelming dread of standing across the net from the Rafael Nadal Academy standout pushed her way past her usual capabilities. She walked away, winning 77% of her first serves. She racked up 7 unreturnable bombs without making a single double fault. She bagged 56 total points compared to Eala's 26. Mainstream outlets are going to glance at that stat sheet and claim Noskova simply muscled past her. But anyone who actually understands the game knows what really went down. Dropping 7 aces and winning 81% of second serves basically spits in the face of traditional tennis logic. Noskova completely bailed on playing a real structured match against Eala. She pretty much threw her whole body at the ball, swinging out of her shoes on every single exchange, and just hoped for a miracle that it would catch a piece of the lines. She was playing roulette out there. It was frantic, high-risk, panic-driven slugging. And lucky for her, on that particular afternoon, under those stadium lights, her massive gambles actually paid out. She drained every drop of energy and emotion she had, pushing her game way past the red line in a way she cannot maintain, all just to scrape together 12 games. Let's shift gears and talk about our superstar now. We need to discuss the ultimate pride of the Philippines, Alexandra Eala, because the real narrative behind this loss is carved in the grit, the grind, and the massive toll she paid out there on the Stadium 1 hardcourt. Just check out Eala's stats. Check out her first serve percentage. She only got 57% of her first serves in. That is a huge glaring fall-off from the mind-blowing 96% masterclass she delivered against Coco Gauff. Then glance at how often she won those first serves. She only took away 36% of those exchanges. The talking heads over at ESPN and Tennis Channel are practically drooling while calling it a slump. They are labeling it a complete meltdown. They are claiming the spotlight finally broke her. The absolute nerve of them. What a completely trash, wildly insulting way to talk about a fighter. Alex Eala didn't suddenly forget how to play. She definitely did not fold. Her physical body just gave the world a harsh reality check that she is actually flesh and bone, not some unstoppable machine. Just imagine the insane, exhausting, absolutely brutal wear and tear this 20-year-old powerhouse has dragged herself through during these past 2 weeks out in the California desert. She battled out of the trenches of the cutthroat qualifying matches just to secure her spot in the main bracket. She survived endless 3-set wars, baking under that oppressive heavy desert sun. She traded blows with major tournament winners in exhausting doubles matchups. And on top of all that, she hauled the immense pressure of 115 million of her countrymen on her back while brutally tearing apart the current US Open champ on the grandest court they have. She executed her game plan against Gauff with such locked-in, flawless mental intensity that it totally sucked her central nervous system dry of every last drop of adrenaline and energy. By the time Eala walked onto court 1 to play Linda Noskova, she practically had no legs left under her. Her muscles were screaming with lactic acid. She was running purely on fumes with absolutely nothing left in reserve. That signature crushing Nadal-style topspin that destroyed Coco Gauff was dropping a little bit shorter this time, all because Eala was fresh out of the leg power needed to blast all the way through her shots. She managed to win just 36% of her first serves and 56% on her second, purely because her body was completely tapped out. She had to face off against a completely fresh, fully dialed-in 14th seed while dragging around a body that had essentially just finished a mental and physical Ironman. She only managed to scrape together a single breakpoint all afternoon because she completely lacked that sudden burst of quick twitch speed needed to flip the script from defense to attack. Yet, this right here is where Alexandra Eala's unquestionable star power outshines every spotlight in the arena. This is the moment she absolutely confirms she is 10,000 times more of a true winner than Coco Gauff could ever hope to be. Take a long, hard look at the very bottom of those match stats. Check out the row showing the most consecutive games won. Linda Noskova went on an absolutely nuclear, unstoppable tear, taking 9 games straight to finish things off. She snagged the first set 6-2 and then handed out a nasty, completely ruthless 6-0 bagel in the second. But take a second and think back for me. Do you recall exactly how Coco Gauff reacted when Alex Eala rattled off a 7-game streak against her ring any bells? Gauff totally freaked out. She stared at her box like a deer in headlights. She straight up called for the medic to bail her out. Gauff totally faked a busted arm, spinning some wild tale about phantom fireworks shooting through her nerves, and took the coward's way out by quitting just because her massive ego couldn't handle getting blown out on her own home turf. That girl threw in the towel. She gave up and bolted. Meanwhile, how did Alexandra Eala handle her business out there today? How did the pride of the Philippines react while Linda Noskova was bombing unreturnable aces and painting the lines with desperate precision for 9 straight games? How did our girl respond when she was trailing 6-2, 5-0, running on absolutely dead legs and zero gas while a vicious American press corps just waited to write her off and dance on her grave? She held her ground. She planted herself on that baseline like a solid steel monument and never once waved over the medical staff. There were no phony stomach cramps. She didn't grab at her shoulder to sell a fake injury to the crowd. Not once did she whine to the ref about the hecklers or the stadium glare. She just tightened her grip on the racket, wiped the pouring sweat out of her eyes, and kept going. She looked straight into the eye of a Category 5 hurricane and went down swinging for every single point left on the board. Scraping together 26 points total in that match, she relied strictly on raw hustle, pure grit, and a stubborn refusal to let anyone strip away her dignity. She somehow snagged 8 return points against a girl who was landing 81% of her serves. They threw the absolute kitchen sink at her, the heaviest, most vicious firepower the Pro Tour brass could muster, and she took the hits like a total warrior, eating that 6-0 second set right on the chin. No tears were shed and no rackets were smashed. She just marched right up to the net, and she shook Linda Noskova's hand with the deep respect, poise, and stone-cold elegance you would expect from a genuine product of the Rafael Nadal training camp. That right there is exactly what separates the weak pretenders from the all-time greats. It is easy to flash a grin play to the fans and scribble some autographs when 96% of your shots are dropping in and you are wiping the floor with the other girl. But real character, the true, undeniable soul of a once-in-a-generation superstar shines through when you are running completely on fumes. When the whole stadium actively wants you to fail, and you are down 6-0 but still flat-out refuse to lay down and die. Rafael Nadal didn't pour millions of dollars into his facility just to train kids on how to coast through easy wins. He built that place to teach athletes how to endure absolute agony while keeping their heads held high. And this afternoon, Eala proved to every scared pro in the locker room that her willpower simply cannot be broken. The veteran players are probably throwing a party in their private group chats right now. They are dropping relieved emojis and flooding their Instagram feeds. They actually believe they are out of the woods. They are convinced the Eala problem is permanently handled just because Noskova magically landed 81% of her second serves on some random weekday out in California. Well, they are dead wrong, and it is honestly laughable. They didn't solve a single thing. All they did was hand over the master plan for her next massive leap forward. Do you seriously believe Alexandra Eala is going to fly back to Mallorca, lock herself in her bedroom, and bawl her eyes out over this loss? Not a chance. She is basically a highly advanced supercomputer soaking up information. She just used that hour out on Court 1 to download crucial elite-level intel on how a top 15 talent plays when their back is truly against the wall, pinpointing the exact rhythm of Noskova's panic-driven serves. She felt the full force of a heavy top-tier baseline assault and found out precisely what kind of cardio it actually takes to win a Masters 1000 event right after surviving the brutal qualifying rounds. She is going to grab that 6-2, 6-0 stat sheet and run off a hard copy. Then she will slap it into a frame inside her Spanish locker room and burn it as pure rocket fuel to motivate herself for the remainder of her playing days. The old guard just threw their absolute heaviest, most panicked haymakers, and all it managed to do was poke the bear and wake up a sleeping giant. The next time Eala lines up against Noskova, or frankly any of these top 15 seeded snobs who smugly assume they have cracked her code, her legs aren't going to give out. She won't be running on empty. She's going to step out there with the endless energy of a machine and the chilling, ruthless payback of a betrayed queen. And the absolute beatdown she's about to unleash on the women's circuit will make that Coco Gauff victory seem like a casual hitting session. Right now is when the diehard Eala squad splits from the cheap fair-weather fans who only ride the hype train. The big sports networks only care about you when you are stacking up wins. They only give you airtime when you are the hot new phenom crushing their hometown favorite. But the real day one backers, those millions of fiercely loyal Filipino fans spread all across the globe, along with the hardcore tennis junkies who know elite Nadal-level grit when they see it, we don't bail on our star just because the final score looks a little ugly. We see the massive physical toll it took. We acknowledge the dead legs. We respect the frightening level of guts it takes to stand in the fire for 9 straight games and flat out reject the idea of waving a white flag. The higher-ups over at the tour offices might be popping bottles this afternoon, but I swear to you, they are partying while their ship goes down. Deep down in their guts, they are completely terrified, because they know this defeat doesn't put a single dent in Eala's aura. All it does is forge her reputation in iron. It proves to the whole planet that she isn't some weak prodigy who shatters into pieces the second adversity hits. She is a brick wall. She ate their absolute best punch and didn't even flinch. She walked out of that event with the entire globe talking about her cementing her status as the single most terrifying competitor breathing right now. Let's be real, she just stamped her name as the absolute worst-case scenario for those aging veterans desperately holding on to their spots. Right this second, I need you all blowing up the comment section down below, no holding back. It is time for the Eala army to rally harder than we ever have since this channel started. The mainstream press thinks this match is their golden ticket to shutting us up. Guess what? We are using this moment to scream 10 times louder, push 10 times harder, and back our girl 10 times as much. I want your energy off the charts right now, making so much noise that those sweating suits up in the corporate suites and the shaken-up rivals back in the locker rooms are forced to witness the bulletproof dedication of our worldwide movement. Give me your raw, honest thoughts on Linda Noskova throwing up a total Hail Mary, hitting an 81% clip on her second serves that she could never pull off again if she tried. Are we all on the same page here, seeing how the whole tennis elite teamed up and threw the kitchen sink at a drained 20-year-old just to make it out of the weekend alive? Just how incredibly stoked are you for Alex Eala holding her ground, eating that 6-love set like an absolute beast, and never once thinking about faking an injury to tap out the way Coco Gauff did? Do you even have a shred of doubt that Eala is taking these lessons straight back to the Nadal Academy to grind like a total savage, only to show up for the European clay court swing and completely steamroll the competition at the French Open? Hit the comment box below with your craziest praise for her grit, your sharpest breakdowns of her pure fatigue, your most fiery shoutouts for her never-quit attitude, and your absolute most fearless spine-chilling prophecies for her inevitable championship payback tour. Nobody ever said tearing down the system was going to be pretty. Every battle leaves a mark, but make no mistake, the old regime is still burning to the ground. The veterans have basically admitted they are shaking in their boots, and the crazy part is that Alexandra Eala is barely even warming up. That throne still belongs to her. Tomorrow is still all her, and we are going to be sitting front row cheering her on while she completely takes over the sport. Let's get it.